Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Donaron Monologue podcast. I am your solo host, as always, Beau. And before we get into the subject matter for today, I just want to again thank our longtime sponsor, big supporter of the show, Ashley Luann K. You can follow her on Instagram at the Minnesota Nurse, all lowercase. And go check her out there and check out her feed. She's got a really cool nursing feed there, and I'm happy to endorse the feed because my wife is a nurse, so that's something that's kind of close to me. Guys, today we're going to, I'm not going to teach you about this. I'm not going to tell you what this thing is because the whole world knows what this thing is. We'll be talking about it all week, but I'm just going to speak about my personal experience with it. We're just going to go with that because it's honestly, it's changed my life and the way I interact with the medium of video games, the medium of fantasy literature, and a lot of things, really. We're going to be talking about WarCraft this week. We are approaching the 1-year anniversary of WoW Classic, and actually, I'm excited to announce I'm going to be doing a new segment. I am leveling a tune from 1 to 60, 1 year into World of Warcraft Classic. Guys, it's changed a lot. Those low-level zones are not jam-packed anymore. That general chat is not blowing up in the level 1 areas anymore. I'm already noticing a lot of differences, but it's still WoW Classic. It's still better than retail, baby. So, today we're going to talk about my introduction to Warcraft. So the year is 1995. I'm a wee lad in 95, I was either 9. I was either 8 or 9, depending on when in the year this happened. I don't remember exactly what time of year this was, but my dad, Pop, he went to Evansville, the hub city of our little neck of Indiana, and he was going to buy a big screen TV, and my mother was excited all day about this. And this is back in the day when you would spend all day in Best Buy buying a large appliance. I could walk out of there with a computer right now in 15 minutes. But back then, you spent time doing this. I don't know what you were doing, but I think it's just because people weren't as well-versed in these as they are now. But anyway, Dad went to buy a big screen TV. He came home real late at night. He walked in with a box that was pretty big and heavy, but it was not big enough to hold a big screen TV. And he's like, I called an audible. I bought a computer. My mother was devastated. She sat down at the table with a Diet Coke and just stared at the standard-sized TV on the wall. Not on the wall, good Lord, this is 1995. On the TV stand, just knowing that she would never have a big screen TV. Like, that was her one chance, and it's just gone. She never did get that big screen TV. So me and Dad spent all night working on this computer. We set it up together, and I remember we spent hours trying to get Windows to shut off. We just wanted to shut Windows, and I remember my dad desperately speaking to the computer and just saying, "Shut the window," very early into the morning. But so this particular podcast is going to be good memories with my dad. That's WarCraft II is good memories with my dad, pretty much. So we've owned this for a few months. It's the early stages of 1996. Gosh, the world in 1996, what a magical place in my neck of the woods. The Simpsons were a Sunday night ritual. Wrestling was getting really good. Nintendo 64 was looming at the end of this year. We were going to get the Nintendo 64. Everyone knew we were going to get it. There was a Super Nintendo in my younger siblings' room. There was a Sega Genesis in my room. We had a computer. I was one of the first kids in my class to have a computer. And we actually had the internet at my house. It was a crazy time to live through. I remember one night my dad came home, and he very commonly would bring floppy disks of games. This is how I got Doom, Jazz Jackrabbit, all these really good old MS-DOS games. My dad would bring them in, and we'd learn how to make them work, and he'd help me to play them. My dad does not play video games. He doesn't like video games. but he figured he was making me better at computers. He wasn't. He was making me better at video games, but that's what he thought he was doing. Either way, I could spend a lot of time with my dad. Well, one day he came home with a bought video game. He bought a video game. My dad never bought a video game for me. My mom might. Most of the time, man, Adam, you remember when video games cost like $70 back in the day? Like, they were more expensive than they are now. And this is when things weren't as expensive. You mostly rented games. So I never got a purchased video game just out of the blue. And my dad came home with WarCraft II. I'll never forget it. It had a pirate staring down a green guy on the cover. I'll never forget it. I had not read a bit of fantasy. I'd never read Lord of the Rings. I was 10, or 9 more accurately. I'd never played a video game like this. I couldn't figure it out. We got it installed. Dad helped me install it. But the best part of this whole thing, and this is all mentioned in the book that we released, our book right here. He noticed. He knows what I'm getting at. So my dad looked at when he got the game for me. I'm like, why'd you buy this game? I wasn't being ungrateful. I was just like, why this game? I was wanting to know what's cool about it. And he said a guy that he works with who played video games told him that it was a game that smart people liked, and that's why he bought it for me. Growing up in the Midwest with these old school boomer dads, that is what we called a compliment. And that is, you had to search for them. They weren't going to give them to you. That's a participation trophy, by God. No, you had to really look for these things. And my dad was emphatically telling me by purchase, he just wouldn't look at me and say, "Son, you're really smart. I appreciate that." He had to go into Evansville, buy a video game, bring it home, put it in front of me. It's like, well, they say, smart fellers are real good at this, so I figured. Guys, that was honestly awesome. There were times being a teenager, because you remember what it's like being a teenager, you get very emotionally distraught at times. And there were times when my dad telling me that he bought a game for me because he knew I'd like it because it's for smart people. It's time that actually really cheered me up, man. It still does to think about. It still puts a smile on my face. So anyway, we spend quite a while trying to install this game. Game installations, you remember, used to not be a joke. You had to actually make some decisions when installing a game. And in DOS, forget about it. You got to mount the drives, stuff like that. But you Steam kids don't know how good you got it. I tell you what. You just buy it on a summer sale and it downloads. But so we got the game installed, we got it running, and I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't running sideways. I wasn't in a first-person shooter. I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea. I was totally lost. I could click this guy and I could click him to move somewhere, but I had to go click a button. I didn't know what a hotkey was. It was a mess. And so my dad encouraged me. He's like, "Hey, the game came with a manual." And I pulled out this thick tome. And I opened it up and immediately fell in love with Sam Wise and Chris Metzen's artwork. There was another artist in that book. I can't remember his name. But the artwork was just awesome. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was like yes, it was very Chris Metzen's very, very inspired by Western comic books. It just felt like a grown-up Disney. There was just something really cool about this artwork, and there was so much lore to chew. And I've always been an avid reader. I read a lot. I was reading novels at that age. So there's no way to say that without sounding pretentious either. That is just I don't like. Oh yeah, and he just pointed out there's a grand piano in the background. I might as well have a sweater vest and a pipe at this point. The IPA. Oh no. Oh, it's a Naruto shirt. I'm still trash. It's all good. But there was such rich lore in this book, and this was my introduction to fantasy. I didn't know these were tropes. I thought this was completely original. I had no idea elves could be as tall as a human and fight. I thought they helped Santa. I had no idea. No clue. So this was my introduction to traditional fantasy. to heroic fantasy, and I fell in love with it. I was infatuated with it. Two classes that I love to this day. I play them all the time in WoW, and I play them on the rare chance that I get to play D&D. I'm almost always a DM, but if I get to play D&D, I play them. I play them in Baldur's Gate. Ranger and Paladin were because of this book. I fell in love with the lore they had for the Paladin unit and the lore they had for the Elven Ranger. And I think the Elven Ranger is because I grew up in the middle of a huge woods. These I grew up in they're stripper pits, but mostly these are roads winding through these woods, and that's where I grew up. So that sort of hit me real well, real right here. For those listening to the podcast, I sort of pounded on my heart a little bit. So there was this whole new world, and I didn't know that traditional fantasy was a thing. I didn't know that Tolkien was a thing. I thought this was all completely original, and it blew my mind. And the way it detailed what happened in the first game, the way it detailed what's happening in the middle and what's happening now, and there's the Orcish clans, there's the nations of nations of and allies of the Alliance and Lordaeron, and there's just so many neat things going on. And I remember my dad asking me one time, we were in his old blue truck. I think he was picking me up from school, and we were driving home because Dad worked just down the road from Eatontown School at the power plant. And we're driving home, and he's like, hey, have you made any progress on learning how to play that game? And I'm like, oh, crap, there's a game. I forgot all about the game. I actually took the manual with me to school and read it on breaks and stuff, or when we had free reading. And teachers would be like, that's a video game instruction booklet, Beau. That is not... You are not reading, Beau. I'm gonna have to, and they would look at it and they'd be like, okay. Like they would look at like the details, like when it's so good. I still have my copy of the instruction manual. I'm gonna read it when I go home after recording this. But I was like, oh crap, there's a game. He's right. So I actually started learning how to play the game, and I started playing it. And my dad would watch me and I realized this later in life. He wanted to see me figure out the game because it was for smart people. And I remember clicking on the units, and then their sayings would just crack my dad up. He loved it, especially the human peasant. Loved the human peasant. On his smartphone, he has a text tone that is the job's done. Loved it. Thought it was the most hilarious thing ever when he heard it. In his garage, when he's working on something, he'll still say, more work, and like chuckle to himself. He loves that. He would ask me to just click on units just to hear what they said, so I would always go into map editor to do that because I'm not losing a battle just because you want to hear something, just because you want to hear something funny. It ain't the way this works, Pop. So I eventually figured this game out. I finished the Horde and the Alliance side. The Alliance is the canon ending. The Alliance wins the second war. They lost the first one. They lost it bad. And I just remember that's the proudest beating game still to this day. Because WarCraft was advanced for my age. I'm going to tell you that. And like I said, this is mostly about memories of my dad encouraging me in a video game. Something that never, ever happened again. But there is something so cool about WarCraft II to this day. It is not the most advanced real-time strategy game you'll ever play. I'm very hesitant to tell you that it is a mind-blowing RTS. It was for me because it was my first RTS ever, but I still think it's a super classic game. It is loaded with charm. That Warcraft charm that's present in World of Warcraft that you're all familiar with, it's still there in WarCraft 2. That's the foundation of it. Every unit has something funny to say when you click on it. It's a pleasure to play to this day. It's actually available on GOG. I think you could buy it in the Blizzard Classic store, which it takes a little bit to find the Blizzard Classic store because none of those are on the launcher. But it may even be free on the Blizzard Classic store now that I'm thinking about it. But guys, and Blizzard was a really weird publisher in the 90s. There were Blizzard games for console. The Lost Vikings. Rock and Roll Racing was Blizzard. Was that the one? Yeah, Rock and Roll Racing. Things like that. Blizzard was very small. And guys, the best part of Blizzard back then, There was no Activision. None. They hadn't come in and ruined everything yet. Guys, thank you so much for listening to me gush about this game that was so, I think I would say foundational. It was very foundational for me. And to hear about other games that were foundational for me, to hear about other games like that, I strongly encourage you to go to Amazon and buy our book. It's a really neat, light reading. I could see you reading it on the beach. Maybe, lay it out on the couch before you go to bed. Maybe in bed. What? Crush and Bush. Our Instagram, I posted a picture of me and Adam. Guys, this is a great anecdote. Follow our Instagram. We're having a lot of fun. I posted a picture of me and Adam 2014, 2015. Very early 15. I think it was 4th of July. I had long hair. I was wearing a bandana. I had a hole in my shorts, in my cargo shorts, and I was crushing a Busch Light, brother. And Adam was wearing a farming equipment. Beck's Seeds, Beck's Seeds, a hat. And we were we were posing in front of his Jeep, and it's the most hell yeah, brother picture I've ever taken in my life. Like, it is 100%. And I basically said, "Don't ever tell us Donoram ain't Midwest." And one of the hashtags was Busch Light. The most hell yeah, brother page on Instagram. It's called Crush Busch Light Outside or Outdoors. Guys, if you're listening, we love you. But this page liked it, and I think they started following us. Yeah, they followed us. And it's fantastic because this is all pictures of people fishing and grilling, crushing Busch Light, and they're following a bunch of nerds that are talking about how much they love their dad because of WarCraft II. But guys, we love you. We are still crushing bushes. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Adam keeps these in the fridge. Come by and have a beer with us. And it's almost always a little Donoram throwback here. A crisp, cool, refreshing Busch Light. I miss opening the show with cracking open a Busch Light. We just used to record a lot at one time, so I would open a Busch Light for everything we recorded. I would get pretty lit up by the end of that recording spree. But, guys, be like Crush Busch Light. Like, share, and subscribe. Even if you just like Busch Light and you have nothing else in common with us, that's proof that you can still like, share, and subscribe. It costs nothing to do that. If you are in the mood to support us financially, we do have a Patreon live. We are developing awesome Patreon exclusive content. We have a little cool page on our one of the channels on our Discord is fully dedicated to our Patreon subscribers, though we are active on every channel. Speaking of that Discord, hit us up there. We're having a lot of fun at Discord. We watched a hell of a Pokemon match the other night. Two true titans of the Midwest faced off. Excuse me. Speaking of Busch Light, guys, we're just having a lot of fun. We really are. Our merch page. Check out our merch page because we have an awesome T-shirt inspired by something that I'm not gonna say because we've already had trouble with it. But you'll immediately know what it's inspired by when you see it. Guys, we're having a blast, man. We're on a watch us rise from the ashes. So guys, until tomorrow, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again.